It will be brief, according to Trump. He claimed that Iran was running out of launchers, missiles, and hiding spots. He claimed that the new supreme leader would not be able to stay in office for very long without the support of the United States. He declared that Iran would emulate Venezuela. If Iran wanted the deal, he said, it was available. Additionally, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, made his first public remarks to the world on Thursday, March 12, 2026, the 13th day of this conflict. On Iranian state television, a presenter clears throat, read it, while a picture of Khamenei appeared on the screen behind him. Furthermore, he did not engage in bargaining. It wasn't a compromise. It did not indicate that any of Trump's promises were being taken into account. The Strait of Hormuz would stay blocked, he declared. He declared that attacks on all U.S. military installations in the area would not stop until they were completely closed. According to him, research has been done on creating new fronts where the enemy would be extremely weak and lack experience. The regime will not neglect avenging the blood of its martyrs, he declared, and this is the most important sentence. Then, in later exchanges, he went further, according to Al Jazeera's reporting from Tran. Any agreement with the United States was rejected by him. In his first public statement, Iran's new supreme leader declared, "Iran will fight until the U.S. is defeated. Let that land for a moment. Not until a ceasefire, not until negotiations, not until America withdraws from the region or reduces its presence or softens its demands, until the United States is defeated." The man selected by the IRGC, the man who lived through the attack that claimed the lives of his mother, father, wife, sister, and grandchild. The man was deemed unsuitable by Trump and referred him as a lightweight. According to Senator Lindsey Graham, it was inevitable that he would suffer the same fate as his father. The man who has been in hiding since February 28th gave his first speech to the country, using a newsreader and a photograph rather than a camera, as no one is certain of his precise whereabouts. Washington now knows the answer to the question it has been posing since the beginning thanks to his speech. Does it have an off-ramp? Is an agreement in place? Is there a way to put an end to this without bombing for another month? No, is the response. I want to present you with a complete image of Mujtaba today, what the whole context of his initial sentence actually entails, why it is so important that he contradicts the president of Iran, and what this proclamation, that we will fight until the U.S. is vanquished, tells us about the future course of this conflict. Since Mojtaba Khamenei has been portrayed in the most of the news as a known quantity hardline cleric IRGC loyalist who has been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury, let's start with who is actually speaking. All of that is true, but in order to comprehend the psychology underlying his initial statement, it is important to know the specifics of this man's background and what he lost on February 28th. The majority of Khamenei is 56. He has never been elected to a position. In his whole life, he has never spoken in front of an audience. Not a political speech, not a Friday sermon, not a lecture. His voice is unfamiliar to the majority of Iranians. He functioned completely in the background as what several analysts called a miniature supreme leader, his father's gatekeeper, and the person that all generals and ministers had to go through in order to get to Ali Khamenei. During the Iran-Iraq War, he fought alongside members in the Habib Battalion as a teenager, cultivating the IRGC. These guys went on to lead IRGC operations, intelligence, and the besiege. Under pressure from those same persons, they selected him and the group of specialists. Iran International claims that they cast their votes for him, while Israeli planes attacked nearby structures in an attempt to halt the succession process from the air. According to reports, he has been injured since February 28th. He hasn't made an appearance on camera. Someone else read the statement while his picture was on display. An English translation was released by the IRGC's media division, Tasneem News Agency. His location, level of functioning, and physical state are unknown to anyone outside the IRGC's inner circle. He also mentioned witnessing his father's body in that statement. He claimed that after his sacrifice, I had the privilege of seeing his body. A mountain of constancy was what I saw. I was also informed that his intact hand had been gripped into a fist. The same strike claimed the lives of his mother, father, wife, sister, and grandson. In the midst of an ongoing conflict with the most formidable military in history, he is recounting the corpse of his father in his first public act as the supreme leader of 90 million people. Paul Salem, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, stated it as clearly as anyone has in the coverage of this conflict. We will fight until the United States is defeated. Nobody emerging now is going to be able to compromise. This is a hardline choice made in a hardline moment, he declared. A member of the Assembly of Experts, the clerical body that supported Mojtaba, clears throat the reasoning behind the selection, in terms that would be darkly comical if they weren't so important. He claimed that the late Kina's admonition that Iran's top leader should be despised rather than admired by the adversary was the basis for the candidate's selection. Even the great Satan has mentioned his name, he continued. He was alluding to Trump's claim that Washington would not accept Mujtaba. Consider the implications of that. The fact that Trump turned him down was specifically mentioned by the group of experts choosing Iran's next supreme leader as a requirement for the position. The choice was made despite the disapproval of the U.S. president. It was the justification for it. He was deemed undesirable by Trump. Perfect, Iran said. That's precisely the point. Mohammad Bagher Ghaliba, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, used somewhat more colorful language. By writing on X, he seemed to explicitly mock Trump's insistence on participating in the selection of Iran's leader. The proud Iranian people, not Epstein's gang, will decide the fate of dear Iran. That post is currently active on Iranian social media. That is how the Iranian political elite communicates with Washington. I must now discuss something that is being greatly underreported because it alters the situation inside Iran in ways that are crucial to the course of this conflict. The statements made by Iran's president 2 days prior and those made by Mojtaba Khamenei in his initial statement are directly at odds. 2 days prior to the airing of Mojtaba's speech on Wednesday, March 11th, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian stated in an interview that Iran might think about stopping the war under specific circumstances. He was competent and cautious. Although he did not state that Iran was looking for a deal or asking for talks, it was implied that there were circumstances under which Iran might be open to discussing a settlement. This was refuted by Mojtaba Khamenei's remark on Thursday. No agreement, no discussions. Battle until the United States is vanquished. Zaidan Al-Khani, Al Jazeera's commentator, pointed out this inconsistency. He pointed out that Kham's remarks went against Pezeshkian's beliefs and stated that by concentrating on armed opposition, the new supreme leader was able to sidestep, in his words, conversations about state construction, economic reform, and several other important topics that are important to regular Iranians. In other words, the warfare is more than merely a military stance. It is an instrument of politics. It enables the new supreme leader to consolidate power around the one thing that the IRGC and the hardline establishment can unanimously support: resistance against the external enemy. The new supreme leader lacks a democratic mandate, a clerical standing acknowledged by senior jurists, a public profile with ordinary Iranians, and a track record of governing anything. Iranian society is still sharply divided over Moshe Bakum's appointment, according to Iran International, a media outfit that is critical of the Iranian regime and has close ties within the nation. The economic struggles that sparked violent demonstrations between January and December of 2026 are still present. The officer corps, which was reporting pay of roughly $119 per month, is still undervalued. The populace that was openly rebelling 6 weeks ago has not abruptly turned into a cohesive, fervent follower of the new supreme leader. The external threat has altered, and Mujtaba is taking advantage of this particular dynamic. Internal dissension turns into internal treason when the bombs start to fall. The authority in charge of resistance has a source of legitimacy that no election could have given it when the foreign adversary is at the gate. In the Iranian political framework, the IRGC has spent 47 years developing a legitimate supreme commander who is despised by the United States. The statement sounds the way it does because of this. It goes beyond simple disobedience for its own sake. It is politically deliberate in every phrase. The dead father's clasped fist, the promise to exact revenge on martyrs. Iranians are using the Strait of Hormuz as a weapon, the unimaginable new fronts, the denial of any agreement with Washington. Each of these components communicates to a domestic audience rather than a global one, to the IRGC commanders who must accept their new supreme leader as their guy. The Basaj volunteers must feel that the revolution is worth protecting. To the common Iranians who, in spite of everything, unite behind the flag when their cities are being bombarded by a foreign force. It was stated precisely by Rob Gist Pinfold, an international security lecturer at King's College London. He claimed that what we are hearing is more of the same than the shift in tone that the Trump administration may have hoped for from a new supreme leader. The polite academic way of admitting that Trump's analysis of the case was incorrect is to state that it constitutes a doubling down on Iran's established beliefs. According to Trump's theory, kill the leadership and the successor will be more pragmatic. Kill the leadership and the system will be shocked into reassessing. Kill the leadership and the man who comes next will understand the futility of resistance and choose the deal. Iran's group of specialists made the opposite decision, clearly, purposefully, and with a theological justification that invoked the idea of being despised by the enemy. The man who was least inclined to strike a deal was the one they selected. The man with the strongest IRGC ties, the man whose affiliation with the toughest line of the hard line defines his entire life. The man who just has seen his whole family being slain in the attack that started this conflict. The man's first action was to announce, "No deal, fight until they are defeated." Let's now discuss the exact aspects of his remark that have the most immediate military and strategic ramifications. The Hormuz Strait. He stated that it is imperative to keep using the lever to close the Hormuz Strait. He stated clearly that it was a weapon already in use and a strategic instrument rather than a threat. On March 3rd, Iran said that commercial traffic could no longer use the strait. This week, the price of oil surpassed $100 per barrel. This week, 2 oil tankers were hit close to Iraq's southern ports, adding Iraqi waters to the fighting area. Hezbollah launched its biggest rocket assault against Israel since the conflict began. According to him, the dispute is growing rather than shrinking. Research has been done on creating new fronts, where the adversary would be extremely weak and lack experience. If the wartime scenario persists, they will be activated. From a purely strategic standpoint, this is the statement's most concerning line. Iran is openly informing the world that it has been preparing to establish more theaters of conflict. What are those fronts? The Red Sea escalation through healthy coordination, the South Caucasus, cyber infrastructure in Europe, sleeper cells in the US or its allies, and maritime operations beyond the strait are not mentioned. But the announcement that they exist and are prepared to be activated if the conflict persists is a signal. Senator Graham stated that it is just a question of time. Iran is saying, "You have not yet seen everything we have prepared." The IDF has already said it will assassinate Mojtaba Khamenei. Trump claimed that in order to survive, he needed American support. Putin of Russia promised unshakable support and declared that it would be unacceptable to target the new supreme leader. China declared that it was against him being targeted. This confrontation is driving a larger realignment akin to the Cold War, which is reflected in the global response. Additionally, the reaction to his statement was divided within Iran, as reported by Al Jazeera from Thrawn. Millions of Iranians here are endorsing Khamenei's comments, according to University of Tehran Associate Professor Zohar Kharazmi, who spoke to Al Jazeera. "Sustainable security is the very basic right of a nation," she said, characterizing his declaration as audacious and brave in the face of U.S. threats. That embodies a segment of Iranian society that participates in protests at Engelab Square, has internalized 47 years of revolutionary rhetoric, and views the supreme leader as the protector of Iranian dignity against American imperialism. There's also the other, Iran. According to the Iran International Report, society is sharply split. Iran's economy is still plagued by the same fundamental issues that led to the large-scale demonstrations 6 months ago. Iran's middle class has seen their savings disappear, whose medical professionals are immigrating, and whose youth are unable to find employment according to their level of education. That the new supreme leader's uncompromising remarks on national television did not cause Iran to suddenly become thrilled about him. That Iran is calculating how long this will last, and how much it will cost, while keeping an eye on the rising price of oil, the straits remaining blocked, and the bombs continuing to fall. Pezeshkian and Mojtaba's contrast indicates that this tension is not limited to the street. The government itself contains it. As an elected president, Pezeshkian is answerable to the parliament and the populace, who will eventually demand economic outcomes. Mujtaba is an unelected supreme leader who is mostly answerable to the IRGC and has no constitutional responsibility outside of the Assembly of Experts. The most crucial intelligence question in the world at the moment is, which signal is real and which is positioning, given their divergent views on the war's conclusion, one proposing terms for its termination, the other opposing any agreement at all? And this is the truthful response to that query. According to Iran's constitution, the supreme leader has the final say on issues pertaining to military strategy and national security. Pezeshkian is able to propose terms for the war's termination. He can be superseded by Mujtaba. The office of the supreme leader has ultimate authority over war, peace, and negotiation under the Islamic Republic's constitutional framework. It's not positioning when the supreme leader says, "No deal, fight until the U.S. is defeated." That is the Iranian state's constitutional authority. And until Mojtaba's stance shifts, either as a result of the military circumstances forcing him to reconsider, internal political pressure from Pezeshkian's camp reaching a breaking point, or the war's economic cost being truly unaffordable for the IRGC's own financial empire. That response is valid. According to Trump, the battle will end quickly. On March 9th, he made this statement. The headline appears in The National. Iran has no place for diplomacy and is prepared for a protracted conflict. According to Lindsey Graham, Mojtaba will suffer the same fate as his father. The next supreme leader of Iran declares, "Fight until the U.S. is defeated." Israel has made threats to kill him. Putin has promised steadfast assistance. China has cautioned against going for him. On the 13th day of the war, this is the situation. At this point, both parties have expressed their opinions as clearly as possible. Trump desires total submission. It is determined to fight until America is vanquished. Those locations don't overlap. There isn't a Venn diagram that shows the overlap between those two outcomes. Either one of them must alter, or the conflict will go on until one side's calculations are forced to change due to military, economic, political, or a combination of all three pressures. Mojtaba's dead mother, wife, sister, and clenched fist father. The 47-year ideological infrastructure of the IRGC commanders, who have been his brothers in arms since the 1980s, inform Iran that resistance against the United States is not only a matter of policy, but also a religious and civilizational duty. The supreme leader's constitutional power, which supersedes all other Iranian state voices. All of that is directed toward precisely what he stated, not toward a settlement or a negotiated off-ramp. Fight until the U.S. is defeated. I will be back with every development as this unfolds, he said in his opening remarks to both his country and the world. If this breakdown gave you the whole picture, share it, because this statement changes everything about what comes next, and it deserves to be understood in its full context. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone.